so much for being here. My name is Margot Stedman, and I am the Advancement and Alumni Director here at Rockford University. And I am so pleased that we are having this session to learn a little bit more about a special type of giving. I want to introduce our guests today. We have Betsy and Dave with us, and I'll just give a brief introduction of them, and then we'll turn it over to kind of a discussion format. I have some questions for them. Betsy and Dave are part of their practice Emberson and Bergstrom, and they've been in practice for 4 years now. They took over for Loescher and Associates. They acquired that. And if you know the name Dan Loescher, he's been a longtime friend of RU, and we have his map collection on display here at the university. So we're grateful for their service. Dave Emberson is a CPA. He graduated from NIU with a degree in accounting and worked at Coopers and Lybrand after college before joining Loescher and Associates. He has over 30 years of experience in tax matters. He's married to Linda, who also works in their office. He has 3 grown children, and in his spare time, he enjoys volunteering, hiking, and visiting his children. Betsy Bergstrom is also a CPA and graduated from Rockford College with a degree in accounting as well, and worked for Morrissey Accounting. From there, she was in the private sector for a short time and then went back into public accounting. She also worked at Loescher and Associates before acquiring the practice with Dave. Betsy has 2 grown children as well. In her spare time, she enjoys traveling, fishing, and spending time with her children. Thank you all both so much for being here.
Thank you.
Add you to the spotlight. And so we're talking about qualified charitable distributions today from IRA accounts. And I had a couple questions. I wanted to just start with, can you all give a brief explanation? What is a qualified charitable distribution? What do we need to know?
Well, a qualified charitable distribution is, like you mentioned, a distribution from an IRA that goes directly to a charity. And when in doing that process, then the distribution becomes tax-free on your personal tax return. And you have to be at least 70 and a half years old to do it. And the maximum amount you can do in 2024 is $105,000. And next year, the maximum goes up to $108,000. So it's not just limited to your required minimum distribution. Some people kind of get fixed on that number and say, well, my required minimum distribution is about $50,000, so I can give that away to charity. Well, no, you can actually go above that amount if you so desire.
All right. And so let's talk a little bit more about how does that help with your annual tax burden? What does that mean exactly? If I know nothing about it, the 101 basic.
Pretty much, it's dollar for dollar right off the top. So if I was required to take a RMD, let's say of $100,000, and of that $100,000, I wish to allocate 50,000 of that to charity. It's pretty much reduces, as Dave said, your taxable RMD down from $100,000 down to $50,000 right off the top. You don't need to itemize and put that down on your Schedule A if you do not itemize or just take the standard deduction. So again, pretty much dollar for dollar, it's right off the top of your income for the year.
So that could have a big impact and potentially even change the tax bracket that you're in. Is that true?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes.
So if you're on a fixed income and you're looking at that, you could have a big impact on what's staying with you, what's paying in taxes, and make a difference in the community.
Agree. Yes. Absolutely.
That's exciting news.
And quite a few of our clients do utilize the qualified charitable distribution. Some people say, well, I already itemize. So what's the difference?
Yes.
And really, if you're already itemizing, you give a lot to charity as it is, it's still being deducted on Schedule A. It's the gap, the real tax planning comes in is when you're taking the standard deduction because your charitable contributions aren't quite enough. Or if, let's say, you give $30,000 a year to charity and you give that, you write a check for all that. Mm-hmm. And the standard deduction is roughly $30,000 for someone over 70 and a half, just rounding the numbers down a little bit. And at the same time, it's like with standard deductions there, I give it to charity. Effectively, that charitable contribution really is hardly even tax deductible because the standard deduction is so high. So we tell a lot of our clients is if you shift those charitable contributions from just coming out of your personal checkbook and make them come out of your IRA, you lower your taxable IRA on page 1 of your return. At the same time, you're taking then the full standard deduction and not maybe just itemizing at 40,000 with the charitable contributions. You're able to actually maximize your deductions by taking it on page 1 as well as Schedule A through the standard deduction.
So I want to highlight something I just heard you say. One big difference that we're talking about here is it's not just writing a check to a charity, it's having it come directly from your IRA, and that's what's giving you that tax benefit.
That is correct.
Mm-hmm.
And so can you, through qualified charitable distributions, are you able to give to more than one charity if you choose?
Oh, yes, you can, and you would simply meet with whoever is the custodian of the IRA, and you would make a directive of who you would like this money sent to, and it can be multiple charities. It can be one charity. It can be Dave and I have seen clients that say, okay, we have 5 charities, and we would like $5,000. Per charity to be, distributed from charities. Absolutely.
That's very exciting. And so the other thing I heard you say that I want to make sure I highlight is that they need to contact whoever is in charge, their financial planner or whoever is managing their IRA, and it goes directly from that gift over. And at that point, we do receive qualified charitable distributions here at Rockford University, and we're grateful for them. Depending on who manages your IRA, what company that's going through, it's always a good idea to contact the charity directly and let them know that that gift is coming. Because when we get your check, sometimes it has your name on it and sometimes it doesn't. And the person managing your IRA is not going to disclose your personal information to us, which is a good thing. But we don't always know to credit it to you or to be able to thank you or talk with you about how you might want to allocate that gift if you want it, in our case, to go to a scholarship or to go to a special campaign that we're running. So it's always a good idea when you do that to make sure you let the charity know this gift's coming. It's coming from Schwab, Fidelity, wherever it's coming from, it'll be for this amount of money. So when we get a check for $5,000, they say, oh, Betsy, I just got a check from Schwab. That must be your contribution. Thank you so much. So just highlighting that.
And to kind of talk on that point as well, in terms of identifying who it's coming from, your letter that you give to the person who gave you the donation is required documentation that's needed for tax preparation as well. So that's a good point that you bring that up, that we make sure that letter gets out and that information is provided and kept with the tax return.
Yes. We send those letters and we don't know who to send it to if you don't tell us. And sometimes you can contact them and they'll tell you, but a lot of times they won't, which we understand, like, no, we're not telling you who we sent that $5,000 check on behalf of. Of course you're not. I assume they can go to any 501c3 organization. Are there other types of organizations that can receive qualified charitable distributions that people should know about?
Well, really, the 501c3 is really, it's restricted to an organization that is a 501c3. So they cannot do it to a donor advised fund. So you can't make a QCD directly to a donor advised fund because that will not work. It has to go directly to a qualified charity.
Well, that was another question that I had that I thought you all might be able to answer. Are there other types of gifts that I can make from retirement accounts that I should know about? You mentioned donor advised funds. Maybe is there anything like that or other just things people should be keeping in mind?
Really, I mean, there is no other tax deductible qualified charitable distribution to any other type of organization or from a gift perspective. It really does have to come directly from the IRA to a 501c3. When you start thinking about other quote unquote gifting concepts with an IRA, most of it tends to go down to the beneficiary side. So if you wanted to leave Rockford College a portion of your IRA upon death, that's effectively a way of making a gift upon your death as part of your estate. And that does then become a tax-free gift because your beneficiaries, your children, wouldn't have to pay tax on that. Obviously, because it's going directly to the college. But in terms of QCDs and how they're handled, there's really no other gifting concepts from an IRA outside of that are considered tax deductible.
But I like your point that there's lots of ways to plan gifts with taxes, and that there's people like you out there that can help walk people through what those types of beneficiary gifts might be and how it could benefit not just you in the present, but your family in the future and your loved ones, and having a sense of philanthropy and legacy along with caring for your loved ones by easing that tax burden. So that's a big thing to remember, is that you all exist and you can help people make those decisions and answer those questions and talk through what those options might be. And we can talk through those options as well on our end, but we always need to refer them to someone like you to do that paperwork for them. So that's really, really helpful. I think we've covered all of the basic questions that I had that I thought would be helpful to share with people. Are there any other questions, if anyone has any that are on the Zoom that want to ask, or anything else you would like to cover to make sure we know what we need to do to maybe take next steps for this?
Well, there's also, there's also a state impact for saving tax as well. Not necessarily Illinois, because Illinois retirement distributions aren't taxable anyway. Yes. But for those of our friends that are up north in Wisconsin, potentially, that may be still connected with Rockford College or giving, there is a ability to then, the QCD would not only have a federal tax savings, but it would also have a state tax savings as well for states that tax retirement accounts.
Good point.
That's a very good point. Check with the state that you're in, because we have alumni all over the country that might want to do this. So finding someone asking that, what does this impact for my state? Very good point.
I have a question.
Yeah.
As a young person, I'm obviously not really ready to make a charitable donation in this way, but is there something as a young person that I should be thinking about as I start to grow my savings and grow that and get ready to start giving?
Well, that's a good question. I guess, like I said, you're trying to build up a savings so you can make contributions out of your quote unquote yearly budget. And I guess from that perspective, I might talk more towards tax planning, but with the standard deduction being so high, younger people who aren't 70 and a half, some of the advice we give them is to maybe bunch their charitable contributions in one particular tax year. Meaning that if I typically give $2,000 to United Way, well, maybe I give $2,000 for 2024 and $2,000 for 2025 in 2024 at the end of the year, to kind of bunch the contributions up, which may then allow me to get above the standard deduction and get a tax deduction by doing so. So that's kind of a concept we try and let our clients know about potentially if they like to give charitable contributions and they're really close between standard deduction and itemized deduction, and kind of let them know if you bunch them all up in 1 year, get above the standard deduction, get a tax benefit, the next year go back to the standard deduction because your charitable is really low, and then again the following year maybe go up and do it again and kind of go up and down a little bit of a roller coaster. And a lot of times you let them know that, let the charitable organizations know that that's what you're doing. Especially if you give to your local church. Sometimes if you don't give 1 year, not give another year, they think you're upset with them, but just kind of let them know that you're just doing some tax planning. Correct. And we're a bunch of the contributions together. But in terms of savings, and most of our younger clients now, we kind of steer them towards a Roth IRA. And then the QCD from a Roth IRA doesn't make a lot of sense because those distributions are tax-free anyway to begin with. It's just another bucket of money you could give to charity, I guess, at some point. But for tax deduction purposes, it wouldn't make much sense. So from that perspective, if you're doing regular IRA contributions, then yes, somewhere down the road, you'll be able to use those for charity for QCDs when you get older. Yeah. But for younger people, it's mainly kind of the bunching concept and trying to get a tax benefit from doing that.
Perfect. Thank you.
And I like to highlight again what you said, communicate with the charities that you are making those donations to. Let them know
Yes.
it's coming. Let them know what you want it used for so that they can make sure that it's allocated appropriately when your gift arrives and so that they can provide the proper documentation for taxes later, or it's not as effective for their for tax purposes if we're not able to.
Right. Yeah, having that letter is really important. I mean, anytime there's a contribution of, I think it's $250 or more, you have to have that written correspondence from the charity in order to actually take that tax deduction. You know, there have been court cases decided where it's a $10,000 contribution. Here's my canceled check. Clearly, it's a charity on a canceled check, but that person did not have that letter from the charity at the time they filed the return, and the donation was denied, or deduction was denied. So it's really comes down to making sure you get that letter.
Correct.
Yeah. And I know in our office, we run letters weekly when gifts come in. We immediately send out that acknowledgement with that tax language at the bottom saying, this gift was received. There were no goods or services. Here's our tax
Right.
number, all
Yeah.
of that language. And so again, if we get a check and we don't know who it's from, we have to hunt down. We did a little investigating a few weeks ago and we were like, well, let's look at everyone who gave this amount of money in this time frame last year. Let's look at where the check came from, and we found the person through some database sleuthing. But
That's good.
it said what it was for. It was scholarships for a certain class year, and so we were looking at who gave gifts that graduated in that class year that came from this financial management firm in the past, and we narrowed it down. But they thought that their name would be on the check and it wasn't. And so it said what it was for, but not the donor name. It just had the donor intent from, I think it was from Fidelity Schwab, one of those.
That's important. That's important.
Yes. And so we were allocating it properly as far as spending it. But not so anyway, but yes, it is something that we are very mindful of and diligent about, but that communication goes a long way.
Yeah. I guess one other point on the QCDs for most of our clients, like I said, there is paperwork involved.
There is.
To file, to get that done. And a lot of times our clients, if it's $100 or $200, they really don't go through the exercise of contacting the custodian and going through the work unless those smaller numbers really add up to a larger number. They just feel the paperwork isn't worth the tax benefit sometimes. But again, with Rockford College and some other bigger charitable organizations, those numbers are large enough that it really makes a lot of sense to go through and the extra work, contact the custodian and get the paperwork filled out. It's not that bad to do, especially for the tax benefit at the end.
And it's always good to, like Dave said, it does take a little bit of paperwork and time, is for clients to start doing this if they do decide to do this. Either do it throughout the year or, say, okay, November 1st, I'm going to write down all my charities that I want to donate to and get the ball rolling with the custodian. Because it does take some time. We do have some clients that, now a week or so before Christmas and they get in the giving spirit. Well, now we're kind of running against the deadline, the cutoff for the end of the year. I mean, so something to think about during the year as well, just not the year end when it gets, like I said, you're up against the wall. So it does take, it's not just snap your fingers and the gift is out and, you get the letter the next day. It does take a little bit of time and so forth.
So it sounds like if I had never done it before, a good first step would be to contact my tax accountant and get an idea, what size of a gift should I be looking at where it would really make the impact on the taxes that I would like it to make, and that your tax accountant can help you make that decision on what amount might be good for you to meet your goals. And then you would need to contact the custodian of your IRA to start that paperwork. And at the same time, contact the charity to make sure that they know it's coming. If I just kind of break it down into steps, talking to someone like you all would be the first step.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's perfect order.
Yeah.
And like Betsy said earlier, you got to get the ball rolling. You can't write the check you can't contact the IRA on December 30th and expect it to be done. Whereas you can write a personal check and drop it in the mail and it's good. This doesn't work that.
That's really good to keep in mind too, that it's don't contact
And
your
in the
tax
fall,
accountant
too,
until
is a
after
good
tax season, but summer, early fall might be a good
Right,
time.
it's a good time, and then, we can have, the potential clients can come in and, like our clients come in summer and fall and say, hey, I'm thinking about making a donation, through my my RMD, a QCD for 30,000. Can you let me know what the tax impact of that would be? And Dave and I literally can just run some numbers and say, okay, this would be your savings. It would, keep you in the tax bracket you're in, but save you a little bit money, or it might, as you mentioned earlier, put you into a lower tax bracket. So we can certainly play around with some of those numbers and see what the tax savings would be, in the fall, late summer, early fall. And then that gives you enough time to, in the fourth quarter, before it gets too late, to, to instigate and talk with your financial advisor and get the ball rolling on the donation. So, yeah.
I think that's a really helpful timeline to keep in mind, and something that a practical step of, okay, we're thinking about giving now because it's the end of the year, but for something like this, we need a little bit more time and planning to make sure that it's done well, and always keep your tax accountant in the loop on that so that they can help you make the best decision to meet your goals.
Sure.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any other questions? This has been very informative for me. I've learned a lot, and I think it'll be something we can share with others to help them learn more on how to do this. And I understand you all are always available to answer questions, and are you taking new clients if people need that assistance?
Yes.
Oh, yes, yes, absolutely.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, if there's no more questions, this has been so wonderful. Thank you both so much for your time, for coming on and answering these, for letting us record it so we can share it with others who weren't able to join us live, but who have signed up and said they were interested in learning more on this topic. I know it can be intimidating when you're first starting out on this journey, but it sounds like there's a few easy steps that you can take and make a big impact personally and in your community, which that's a double win right there.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
All right. Well, and with that, I think we'll end the session and say happy holidays season to everyone. And we have a nice comment. Someone's a little bit away, but has learned a lot. So thank you so much for that. And I think this will be something everyone can learn from.
Yes. Well, thank you for
Agreed.
joining us. Yes. Happy holidays. Stay warm.
Thank you.
Happy
Thank you.
holidays to all.